What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Draft Day Dynasties. I'm C. Jackson Cowart, the community manager here at Wolverine Studios, and I appreciate you joining us for the 27th episode, lucky number 27, of Draft Day Dynasties, and the 6th showing off Draft Day Sports College Football 2023. If you haven't seen any of the previous episodes in this series, first, shame on you, but once we've moved past that, you can catch up on all of those on our YouTube channel. You can always catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the official Wolverine Studios Twitch channel. Appreciate, hopefully, a lot of you joining from last week. We had a pretty busy and bustling time in the chat. If you haven't caught that episode, like I said, you can, I don't know if that one's on YouTube yet, but might be on YouTube, might be on Twitch. I know those stick around for a couple weeks. So if you didn't see last week's episode, definitely check that out. We went through training camp, really a deep dive into how training works. Brooks was on the chat, which was awesome. I learned a ton from Brooks. Hopefully you guys all learned a ton from Brooks. And we all learn a little from each other, right? It's always fun to have you guys in the chat piping in. I love it. I learned so much about these games and the community just from what you guys are saying in the chat. So already we have Budget Crypto who says hello. It's a lowercase hello. There's no punctuation. So Budget Crypto, I'm not sure if you are a crypto bot. If you are, I appreciate you joining, and if you're not, I appreciate you joining even more. Bulldozer 7753 there, just to be clear, said, hello, yes, last week's episode just appeared on YouTube today. Would you look at that? We are live on YouTube. Budget Crypto is confirming for us here that they are not a crypto bot. So I gotta be honest, I was kind of hoping that we had a bot in the chat, but Budget Crypto, I'm actually more excited that you are here. So if you are watching us now and you haven't piped up in the chat, now is your time. Everybody is saying hello, so give us a wave emoji, whether that's a waving hand or whether that's a wave of water, whatever you guys feel. Toss something in the chat there. Would love to see how many of you are joining us this week. So, like I said, we went heavy on the training last week, so now I think it is decision day. That's right, we are going to set our depth charts today. I can't promise how far we're going to go because I feel like every time we do this, it always takes a little longer than I think. But that's a good thing, right? We're just messing around, playing with the game a bit, learning some, and hopefully making some not too disparaging jokes about our players along the way. So let me go ahead and just hop right into this here. Hopefully some of you guys are streaming in here and can help make some of these decisions. Because really, I mean, this is the foundational moment for our entire season, figuring out who is going to be playing, or starting at least, hopefully. Hopefully we get a lot out of our starters, right? Don't have to lean on the backups too much. But I do feel really, really good about the roster this year. Depth chart's not where I want to be. I want to be on rosters. I feel really good about our overall roster. I mean, we have some absolute stud freshmen coming in, which is pretty exciting. We redshirted Mark Berry at quarterback last year. He was none too thrilled about it, given that he was a senior and he's 24 years old and he doesn't really want to be in college anymore. But we redshirted him, so we're going to give him a shot here to be, our trusty starter. Hopefully lead us to the promised land here and lead us to that Cinderella storybook season that the athletic directors keep talking about. But we have talent up and down this roster, guys. I mean, especially on defense. You look at our secondary, it is absolutely nasty. I'm feeling better about our offensive line than I have in the past. Our running back room is not too bad. Unfortunately, Frank Godinez is questionable with fatigue. That is, I guess, none too surprising. If you were watching in last week's episode, we were hit with a pretty hilarious spam of emails from the team medic letting us know that we're pressuring our players too hard. Fortunately, I think this is just a bug. All of these emails. Brooks says he already fixed it, so love to see that. I haven't updated my version yet, so if there's anything else wonky you see, probably about a 75 to 80% chance that Brooks and Asgrove already fixed it. So don't mind that too much. But I got a good chuckle out of this. So I'm guessing Frank Godinez is one of those guys who was pressured a little bit too hard. But what I want to do today, I think the best way to do this, and the way that I recommend that you guys do it as well in your games, obviously, anything that you guys watch here, feel free to, it's your games, right? Play your games however you want. But hopefully you guys can see how I approach these games. I've been playing Wolverine Studios games draft day sports titles for about a decade now, but I'm much newer to the football games, so similar logic, but some tweaks. So hopefully you guys can see how I approach things, and maybe just take some tidbits on how you want to approach it on your side, or vice versa. I can learn from you. So let's do a quick scan here. I'm curious, because Godinez is questionable with fatigue. I don't know if that means that he's literally questionable for week 1, like he's so tired from training camp that he's not going to be able to play in week 1 for fatigue alone, but we'll see. It kind of looks like fatigue, so I'm not sure if maybe that's some sort of muscle that I'm unaware of. Let's see. So Robert Larson has that team captain tag. That is good to see. That kind of makes me think that he should be the starting running back too. I know that's not really technically a reason to start somebody, but if the team thinks that he's one of the most respected guys in the locker room and he's only a sophomore, like, that to me seems like a pretty good indication that he should be somebody that is in my plans. Killer 35 Durant says, usually from what I've seen is the guys will play, but their performance is generally worse, need limited reps in game. So Killer 35 Durant, love your username, and I'm assuming that you're referring to specifically the fatigue tag, or the fatigue tag as it looks like on mine. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe Godinez, we limit him to just a few carries in week 1, if at all. I mean, Robert Larson seems like he's probably got it handled. But let's go down here. Robert Narvaez, he is also questionable with a fatigue injury. Lewis Conklin. Oh, jeez. Okay, Lewis Conklin is actually out 1 to 2 weeks with that fatigue injury. So, that's not great. Justin Davis is a team captain, so that's exciting to see. 83 overall. I think he might be our highest rated receiver. Yeah, it looks like it. So Justin Davis definitely going to be earning some playing time for that alone. And Robert Goodman is doubtful with that really killer fatigue injury. So the good news is nobody is actually hurt. Nobody seems to have suffered, any sort of real injuries. I'm not being disparaging or dismissive of fatigue. I mean, fatigue is a real thing. Those of you watching out there, don't overstrain yourself, all right? Fatigue is an epidemic. But, it's an epidemic that seems to have struck our roster. There you go, James Stevens, I have a guess. Yep, look at that. Out 1 to 2 weeks with that fatigue injury. Fortunately, you're a 64 overall, so you're probably going to be out for 12 weeks. But that is neither here nor there. He's a senior, too. Man. You're a senior, and you're a 64 overall with 53 skill. Yikes. James Stevens. You can go ahead and just sit on the bench, buddy. If you're too tired, that is not a problem. Ricardo Woodruff. Yeah, he's also out with that fatigue injury, but 74 overall, so not really too concerned there. Jeez. Franklin Whelan. Uh-oh. Our first real injury on the entire roster. So he's got a groin pull. That sucks. Fortunately, he is a freshman in arguably the most stacked room on our entire team, which is free safety. Or safety in general, I guess. Strong safety might be slightly better, but he's got that 97 skill. So he is certainly a skilled freshman coming in here. Sucks to see that he has that groin pull. That is obviously a very legitimate injury that I would not wish on my worst enemy. And I wouldn't wish it on Franklin either. So we'll go ahead and give him some time to rest. Miles Zuniga is probable with fatigue. You better be probable because he is one of our better players. Don't know if we're going to be really resting Zuniga much. Maybe Couture gets a little bit more run in week 1, especially considering he is a bit faster. He's a bit more skilled. He is dumb as a rock, so that you hate to see that. But we'll see. That's going to be an interesting decision there. Couture's the strong safety and Zuniga's free safety, but still, we should be good on those. And then Norman Gamble, team captain, as he should be, arguably the best player on the entire team. And Stephen Kimmel. What is going on? You're out? You're out for 1 to 2 weeks with fatigue. You're a kicker. You need to make like 1 or 2 kicks. I mean, you can even be huffing and puffing. That's fine. Just use your leg. Unbelievable. All right. Killer 35 Durant says, I was playing the new pro game and I was toying around with spending 25 points on training. and would have 10 to 15 injuries at a time. I actually love that part of the game. Can't overwork guys too much. Yeah, I don't want to get that mistaken. I love this part of the game too. I'm obviously making fun of my players for their fatigue injuries, but could easily just be like one of these guys has a groin pull. Could be as easy as a hamstring strain or whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter, fatigue or whatever else. But I do think it's hilarious that half my team is questionable with fatigue. I guess the team medics did warn me of this exact scenario, but yeah, that's what happens when I don't listen. So there you go. There's a little bit of a postscript, guys, on what we talked about last week with training. If you overtrain all of your players, which, I mean, I definitely overtrained every single one of my players. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, if you overtrain them all, then you are bound to face the consequences. So it might be worth looking at this. Brooks hops in the chat and says, "You were warned, ... repeatedly." Yeah, he's not wrong. I was certainly warned repeatedly by the team medic, so I have nobody to blame but myself. Killer Durant says it'll be awesome to see them have more soft tissue injuries on overtraining, groin pulls, hammy pulls, etc. I agree. I actually think that would be a really cool feature. Brooks, I don't know. I guess I'll ask, are injuries related to, sort of the nature of what injured them, right? Like if this is, if it's clearly sort of an overworking situation, will that be reflected in the type of injury they have? Obviously fatigue is being reflected there, so maybe that is already the case. But curious about that to Brooks. But all right, so we are going to have to make some minor adjustments given the fact that our entire team is fatigued. Brooks already answering that, saying injuries have a severity to them, so most of the overwork injuries should be the more minor ones. Perfect. That definitely does make sense. Okay, so let's just go one by one, right? Let's check this out here. Also, my second screen that I'm using is about to run out of battery, so yeah, looks like battery is not charging. That's good to see. So if you guys are piping up in the chat and I'm just mysteriously quiet about it, you will know why, but I will have a backup option in place. All right, so start at quarterback. I think I already have my answers here. I don't really think that there's a lot to debate, but this is the most important position, so we might as well at least have a little bit of a discussion about it. But the starter is going to be Mark Berry. I'm just going to say that right now. I want Mark Berry to know that. I don't want him to be watching this stream afterwards and think that there was any sort of question as to why I redshirted him as a senior and asked him to come back as literally the oldest undergraduate potentially on campus. Yeah, Mark Berry's going to be the starter. And, I mean, he's earned it, right? He's got a 93 arm. He's got the best arm on the team. 89 accuracy is one shy of the best, with George Prince, the freshman, already making moves here. But pretty clear to me, the intelligence is a bit of a concern. And if we were to make a move at any point during the season, my guess is that would be why. If we start to see interceptions piling up for Mark Berry, I'm going to point right to this intelligence, and I'm going to point to his skill level. He's a 73 skill, which is, at least a little bit concerning. It doesn't mean I'm not going to start him, but, it does mean that we might have a bit of erratic QB play. Berry clearly has the highest ceiling. There is no question about that. He's got a cannon arm. He's accurate enough. I'm concerned a bit about his intelligence and his skill. But here's the thing. What would we do otherwise, right? Who would we start in his place? If our issue is the intelligence and the skill level, particularly the skill level, we're not going to go down to Frederick Shepard, right? Because he's less skilled than Mark Berry. And, while his intelligence is higher at a 76, it's not so much higher to make up for the fact that he is just brutally inaccurate. So I don't think that Frederick Shepard, even though he's the fastest guy in the room, and I do like that. I do like to have quick quarterbacks. I just don't think I can justify playing Frederick Shepard in this spot. Worse arm, much less accurate, only marginally smarter, and less skilled. So it's not going to be him. James Price, to me, this is fairly obvious. He's got a noodle arm, and he's inaccurate. And he's not that skilled. So it's not going to be James Price. If anything, James Price seems like a pretty clear redshirt option. Now, we're not going to redshirt right now. We're going to redshirt at the end of the year, so don't really have to worry about that. But I don't think that either of those guys are going to be the starter. So that leaves George Prince. And there's something really compelling about him, right? He's got an 83 arm. So it's not the best arm on the team by far. It's actually he's got the third best arm on the team. But he's the most accurate quarterback in the room. And he is skilled. Boy, is he skilled. He's coming in as a freshman, but 6'4", 212, he's got that 88 skill level. He's the most accurate guy on the team. And really the only concern is the fact that his arm is 10 worse than Barry. But he is a little smarter, right, if intelligence is our concern. So this is very, very interesting to me. His endurance is low, and, I'm not sure. Brooks, maybe you can weigh in here. I'm not sure how much I'm really going to make a starting quarterback decision based on endurance. These guys aren't running, especially not Prince. Prince isn't going anywhere with that 50 speed. But, I would hate for Prince to kind of collapse late, because he's tired and, his arm's not working quite the same. But look, he's incredibly accurate, right? So even if he is a bit gassed near the end, I don't think that that's really going to be too big of a concern. And if it is, we could bring Mark Berry off the bench. So it's interesting. Killer35 Durant says, I'd start Prince because I always love having 4-year starters. I don't know if it's a feature at all or just me, but guys for me always play better when they have more playing time over time. He just needs to get in shape. Yeah, he certainly needs to get in shape. That is a feature, right? It's not such a thing as a 4-year starter feature, but playing these guys, these guys are developing while they're playing. That's a huge part of it. They develop in training camp, and develop over the offseason. They develop every week. And Brooks, correct me if I'm wrong, playing time is significant for these guys. If you're getting players game reps, if you're getting them in action, that is going to help their overall long-term development. So, and Brooks is chiming in the chat too, saying as long as you're not running them, the endurance should be fine. That's what I was thinking as well. So, Prince is back there firing darts. I think it's okay if he's a bit winded. This is really, really tough. This is one of those situations where the overall, if you just took away the overall, right? Let's say they were both an 85 overall. And we're looking at these guys, and Barry, has 10 points higher in the arm strength, but they're equally accurate, essentially equally as smart, and Prince has that much QB skill on him. It's interesting. Brooks says playing time during the week does help with morale, some training development, etc. It wouldn't be a bad idea to play both of them a bit, maybe a 75-25 split. Killer35 Durant says start one week 1 and the other week 2. Man, I didn't think we'd have a quarterback controversy this soon, but there's nothing better, right? Nothing better than a quarterback controversy in our first full season at the helm of San Diego State after our stellar 0-0 record last year. So I'm going to look at one other thing that I would recommend you guys look if you are trying to make a really tough decision and you need essentially a tiebreaker. There's no better tiebreaker than personality. And we're looking right here, all right? Mark Berry is a gunslinger. That's a little concerning. In some ways that's a good thing. But to me, gunslinger certainly connotes risk-taking, and I'm not really looking for that. So Killer Durant says, kind of like Bama the year they had Hurts Tua in terms of, a QB split. Bill Dozer says maybe start Prince in a few sub-packages, and Killer Durant agrees that might be a decent idea. That's not a bad idea to do some sub-packages. But looking at these traits here, Mark Berry is a gunslinger. Brooks, what should I be keeping in mind with gunslinger? I can look it up, I'm sure. But although I think a lot of these traits are a little bit fuzzy, so you don't have to break the fourth wall on that one. But should I be a little bit worried about gunslinger? I feel like that's not necessarily what I want from my senior quarterback, unless I want him to go out there Johnny Manziel style, and that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I know he did win the Heisman, but if you're a Texas A&M fan, you're probably terrified every time he was back there. So, and then looking in terms of things like morale and leadership, right? Both these guys have a decently high morale, but Barry is higher. Both these guys are decent leaders, but Barry is higher. Both these guys, Well, I mean, they don't really both have a good work ethic. George Prince is kind of a loser, to be honest with you. And looking at Barry, he's super competitive. He's a good sport. I mean, sportsmanship, guys. That is the number one trait that I look for is sportsmanship. Not really, but it doesn't hurt. Team player, good disposition, all that stuff, right? And then you come over to George Prince, and he's a bit of a whining baller. There's no way around that. None of these things are super encouraging. So I do think that I have to give the nod to Mark Barry, at least to start game one. Like you guys said, and maybe we can do some sub packages or a week 1, week 2 type of situation. But coming into week 1, I really think it's got to be Mark Barry. Let's see, who do we even play week 1? This might be still up for debate, but we play at Winston-Salem. I think we played them last year too. I'm not really going to mess with that. I'll just let them do whatever they want to do. So that's a tough game. Maybe week 2 against Southern Miss. Maybe that's the George Prince game. And Brooks is referring to gunslinger. He says, if you have speedy receivers, a gunslinger is more of a Brett Favre style quarterback that loves to air it out. So that's the thing, though. With this team, I'm just not quite sure about our receiving core. We had a pretty decent receiving core last year, and then they all graduated. So I don't really love what's coming in this year. We have Justin Davis as our captain, kind of our number one guy. Not very skilled at all, but decent speed. He's got good hands. Just an old reliable type, right? And then you look at Kenneth Jernigan and Jesse Merchant, both freshmen coming in here. They are skilled as can be. Neither one of them can actually catch the football, so little bit concerning there. But they're speedy enough, super agile. So I guess I like to see that. Then you have Frank Bowers down here. He's Mr. Hands. Got to get Frank Bowers in there, I would think. The overall is not great, and he's one of the slowest players I've ever seen in my whole life. But anyway, just looking at this, so back to our quarterback options, this is kind of what we're working with, right? We're working with some fast guys, not necessarily the best hands. So I don't know if... I don't know. Maybe Mark Barry is going to be the right call here. If we just get guys open, maybe he can make someone miss. Yeah, I don't know. He's not fast, though. I think it's Mark Barry. I think Mark Barry's the guy, and I think he's going to have a short leash because George Prince is coming for his job. So, we're going to go Mark Barry, George Prince, Frederick Shepard, and James Price there. I'm kind of surprised that Frederick Shepard didn't make more of a leap in the offseason. I was hoping that maybe he would be kind of the long-term starter here, but I'm just not really seeing it. That accuracy's not there for me. I liked his speed before, but he's really not developing into a dual threat guy. He's got a good work ethic. He's a competitive kid, so maybe that comes eventually. But just not really seeing it so far. But all right, so that's what we got at quarterback. Big decision there. So let's move on to running back now, see what we have on hand. Sorting by overall here, easiest way to do it. Robert Larson's the captain, and I can see why, right? He is shifty. He's got that 88 speed, by far the fastest guy in the running back department here. Not the most skilled, but that's okay. We're just asking him to run between the tackles. Not the smartest guy, but I don't really need Einstein back there. So, not the strongest, that's to be expected. Larson is a speedy guy here. And let's check our staff, because it is really important to know what your offensive and defensive coordinators are kind of tailored to. So Brian Moore, he's been around for a bit. He's got 11 years of experience. You remember him from last year. He's aggressive on offense, silent, strong leader, blah, 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 right? All right. He does a run-first West Coast hybrid offense. Runs mostly from power formations, about taking what the defense gives you in the passing game. Well, interesting. That kind of sounds like George Prince, doesn't it? His offense relies on big receivers. Well, I'm not sure if I'm really going to have what you want there. West Coast hybrid. That is interesting. We're going to give Mark Barry a shot, but this does seem like the type of offense that George Prince could thrive in. And, hey, he's going to be our starter probably for the next 3 years, so I'm not super concerned about that. But we'll see. We'll give Prince some time. But okay, so a run-first West Coast hybrid offense. Kind of wish that he didn't want to run from power formations. I'm super tempted to hit that edit button up there, but that's not the way I like to play. So we're talking West Coast offense here. I feel even better about having Larson as our number one guy. He's super speedy, and how are his hands? Not great. Not great, Bob. That's not super ideal. But I still think he's probably our starter. I do certainly take into account the fact that the team voted him as one of our captains. Does that actually matter? No, probably not at all. But no, I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe it does. But to me, it doesn't really matter. But, whatever, right? He's one of our leaders. Let's go ahead and just give him a shot. Let's check personality just to see if there's anything that we should know. Todd Cantrell is a power runner. That's great to see. That means that he could potentially be our goal line back if he has the skills to match. Cadinez and Larson, man, I wish I could get those two guys in a room, huh? Thoughtless pessimist and a bitter optimist. Would love to see the debates that they have. But in terms of anything else here, morale, leader, Robert Larson is one of the best leaders on the team, so it does help. If he's starting, I like that kind of trickle-down effect, Larsonomics, if you will. So I think that's good. Yeah, I think I feel good about that. I think Robert Larson should probably be our starter. And then our backup should be Frank Cadinez. I mean, he's a good player. He's agile enough. He's not the fastest guy, but he's faster than anyone else. And, he's got the strength to match. He's got good hands. Well, not as good a hands as some of these guys, but, I don't know. Is there really anything to be excited about with Robert Cadinez? Maybe it should be Todd Cantrell. Maybe it should be the freshman coming in here. 83 overall. He's got the strength to match that power runner personnel, trait that he has. Not super agile, but that's to be expected. He's a smart runner. Not very fast, but he's not that much slower than Cadinez. And he's got good hands. So, to me, he kind of seems like a third down. I mean, really, he seems like a third down back in general because he's got good hands and he's a power runner. So, pretty much whatever we need him to do on third down, he might be the guy. And then Frank Cadinez just comes in as getting a few carries a game. I mean, look, Frank, I hate to break it to you, but you were winded. You got tired. So, unfortunately, that meant that you lost out on some carries in week 1, and maybe you lost your job. So, that is sometimes what happens. So, I think I feel good about that. I think we're going to go with Robert Larson as our starter here. Robert Larson. By the way, I'm writing all these down separately on kind of my own notepad. That's what I would recommend you guys do as well. That's something I've done for years now. Anytime I'm playing draft day sports games, is I always just kind of keep track of all of this on my own separate. You can do a spreadsheet. You can do a Google Keep. Shout out to Google Keep, by the way. If you guys aren't using Google Keep, that is a free plug. They are not paying me to say this. Google Keep is where it's at. But I always just jot this down, and then that way, let's say that you want to reset your depth chart in the game, or let's say you forget to do that and the computer does it or something, and you're just kind of worried about losing that. Well, it doesn't matter. You already have it written down. And it's an easy way to just kind of keep track anyway as you're going along, so I don't have to keep going between the roster page and the depth chart or anything like that. Now, granted, you can click on guys in the depth chart and see how good they are, but I just like to have it all laid out in this way. I think it's a really nice way to see all of my players, write down the depth chart, and then just fill it out later. I'll go ahead and do that off screen once this episode is over. So, all right, Todd Cantrell, he is our second back, and I'm also going to write down that he is our third down back. And then I think Frank Cadinez pretty clearly should be our third option there. I mean, he's not the best, right? But he's better than these other guys. And then Seth Schwartz, the slowest running back on the roster. He's technically our fourth best if you're going by overall, but I'm just not really convinced that he is good at all. When you're this slow, it's really tough to make an impact. So, to me, Robert Brunner is probably going to be the guy that I'm looking at there. He's faster than Schwartz, and he has good hands, and I do like to see that. I think if we can have our running backs be a decent dump-off option, especially in this West Coast scheme, and he's super skilled, too. So I'm not worried about him making a mistake. And look, realistically, we're talking about our fourth running back. So really, just come in there and don't make a mistake. And that seems like a job that Robert Brunner is equipped to handle there. And then David Edmondson. Look, you're not great, but you're better than Seth Schwartz, who absolutely sucks. So that's how I'm going to roll with that. Edmondson, I'm not even going to worry about redshirting him at the end of the year. He's a really bad senior, so don't really think that I'm too concerned about that. So that's our running backs. I feel pretty good about that. Let's go to fullback here. And this is not a tough decision at all. It's Clinton Truitt. Really no question about that. He's the superior run blocker. He is fast. Fast as heck. I am certainly surprised to see an 86 speed from a fullback. What is going on? That is incredible. And he's got decent hands. Clinton Truitt should maybe be the starting running back if we're being honest here, but we'll stick him at fullback. But I feel really good about that. And then John King as the backup there, the senior. Not really anything that is super interesting about him. And Clinton Truitt, look at that, he's a fan favorite. I bet he's a fan favorite. He's the fastest fullback in the history of college football. So, I would hope so. Brooks says, may help to identify a few for garbage time so the game doesn't put in players you may want to redshirt at the end of the season. That is a great point. So, for those of you who don't know the way that redshirting works, and this was a change that was made in an update to the game. So, if you bought the game early on, or especially if you got it in first access or beta, and you haven't updated the game, I highly recommend getting the latest version because Brooks and Asger went ahead and updated the way that red shirts work to be more reflective of the way they work in college football now, which is if you play, I think it's up to 4 games, right? If you play up to 4 games, but you don't play any more than that, you can still get redshirted, and basically you save a year of eligibility, even though you did play in 4 games. So that's something that they did in college football, as we saw, a lot of players sitting out these bowl games, and coaches wanted to be able to play these players in the bowl games to give them some developmental reps without having to burn a red shirt. So it was a really cool change that they made in college football and a cool change in this game as well. So to the point that Brooks is making, Brooks says, I think we changed it in first access, so official release all has it already. Perfect, even better. So I recommend updating your game for those of you watching here, just because you should always have the latest and the greatest, right? But yeah, you should be all good there in terms of red shirts, no matter when you got that, if it was the official release. But yeah, like Brooks is saying, it's good to identify which players we might want to have come in for garbage time so that we aren't burning those red shirts on players that we do want to save them for. So, for example, let's go to quarterback here. George Prince, realistically, probably not somebody that I'm going to be redshirting. It's tough. If Mark Berry plays really well, I would love to redshirt George Prince, so maybe that's something that we keep in mind. But somebody like him or James Price, I'm not really worried about James Price getting used in garbage time, so I don't really have to worry about that. We're looking at running backs here. Todd Cantrell and David Edmondson are the only players that are eligible to be redshirted. Todd Cantrell is our best power back. We got to use him all year, right? He's a really, really good player. So I think we are safe there. David Edmondson, let's say I wanted to keep him around for his super senior year. I don't because he sucks, but let's say I did. Then he would be somebody that I would want to be sure was kept out of any sort of sub packages and the like. And leave him off the depth chart, make sure that he doesn't play, so that at the end of the year, I can preserve his red shirt. Now, I'm not going to because, again, he's not a good football player, but that is something to keep in mind. Same thing here with John King. Do I want to keep him? Not really. I'd kind of like to just have the extra scholarship without having to cut him. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave that there, but that is something to keep in mind. So let's go to receiver, because I think that's makes sense to me logically, is to go there next. And this might be a situation where we have some guys that we want to keep some red shirts on, but we'll see. So, number 1 receiver, to me, it's pretty clearly Justin Davis. He's the only player with at least 80 catch and with at least 80 hands and speed. And to me, that says it all, right? He's the only guy who's actually fast and can catch the football. So that works for me. I think he should be our number 1. He's our team captain, 1 of 3. The players voted him there. They love him. And, he's a defiant, pragmatic guy. So that is what you're getting from your team captain. But 100 morale, 90 leadership. You do love to see that. Lewis Conklin also has a 96 leadership. So this is a strong receiver room in terms of the intangibles. But we're sorting by overall again here. I think Justin Davis, he is 6'1" and 186. So you can make the argument that somebody like Kenneth Jernigan should maybe be the number one, quote-unquote, for whatever that's worth. And Jernigan is also the faster player. The only concern there is he got 68 hands. So I am a little worried that that's going to come back to bite us at some point. I mean, in fact, I'm certain that it will. But 93 agility, man, he is just fast. He's big, he's fast, he's kind of a height, weight, speed freak. And he's got that deep threat tag. Look at that. So, sort by personality here, Kenneth Jernigan, deep threat, Jesse Merchant, slot receiver. This team's this depth chart's writing itself. I love to see that. So, I'm trying to figure, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts as well, which one of these guys should be the number one receiver. It doesn't really make too much of a difference because I'm obviously planning on having at least 2 receivers on the field at all times. But just in case we get in one of those power formations and maybe say we only have one wide out, or just in terms of their position on the field. I mean, I'm fairly certain that the number 1 versus the number 2, would make a difference there. I know in terms of the depth chart, if you just go to this here, and you're looking, depending on the formation, you can kind of see. So let's say, let's set Justin Davis and Kenneth Jernigan, and then let's just see what that looks like. Oh, I think I'd have to save it. Let me go back here. Oops. What was formation be? I'll let them set this. I'm not super concerned. There we go. So let's say it's number 1 and number 2, Justin Davis. Let's go ahead and save that. So that's what we'd be looking at here, right? It'd be Davis on this side, it'd be Jernigan on this side. So it's Jernigan to the strong side. So that's something we should consider as well, even just for blocking purposes. If we want one of these guys on the strong side and one of these guys on the weak side, let's look somewhere else. Let's go pro set. On this side, it's going to be Justin Davis on the strong side and Kenneth Jernigan on the weak side, as he is our number 1 receiver and would be kind of our intended target there. So that's interesting. Gives us something to think about at the very least. Let's look at the spread formation. So if we're in the spread, similar deal. Nothing really to get too concerned about there. 2 tight end, I doubt will really be in this formation much, but both of these guys are going to play. So there's really not any formations that I'm looking at here. Maybe the jumbo, but if we're in the jumbo, I can just set that separately. I'm not super concerned about that. I can even just make a jumbo package. So that might be something that I decide to do. But going back to these receivers here, I guess maybe a decent tiebreaker could be their blocking ability. And I don't expect a massive difference between the two. Yeah, neither one of them can really block, so I'm not super concerned about that. Here's the thing. Here's one thing we might want to consider. Jernigan is super skilled. He's coming in as a freshman, so I'm really surprised to see that. But he is super duper skilled. And if he's our number 1 option on most of these routes, especially as a deep threat, especially with that 88 speed, with that 93 agility, I'm concerned about the hands. There's no doubt about that. But our offense calls for big receivers, and he is certainly a big receiver. So, I think it just might be worth it to make him the number 1 guy. I know Justin Davis is the team captain and all, but, whatever. Killer35 Durant says, man, you got some youth and speed at receiver. I know, we had a ridiculous recruiting class this last year after the lost season. 35, if you will. So, yeah, we definitely have some talent to work with here. And I think I am going to go with Kenneth Jernigan as the number 1. I'm going to go with Justin Davis as the number 2. I think he's earned it. He's a good leader on the team, but he's also just a talented player. I could certainly be convinced the other way, though, if you guys think that Davis deserves the number 1 nod. But that's what I'm going to go with. And then I'm going to go, I think, with Jesse Merchant as the number 3 receiver. I'm a little bit torn there because I do really like Frank Bowers. I like the fact that Frank Bowers has some of the best hands I've ever seen, especially in that slot receiver role. But he's just so slow. I would love to have speed on the field everywhere at all times. Jesse Merchant, incredibly skilled. And he does have that slot receiver trait, which just, it means he's going to be that much more efficient in that position. Killer35 Durant says, Jet sweep Diego State. Yeah, I like the little pun there. I know. We might as well run some stuff like that, right? I'm not really big into the custom playbook stuff. I I mean, not to say I'm not big on it being in the game. It's one of the coolest features. I just haven't dove fully in, and I probably won't for this first season. But I could definitely mess around some over time with some of the skill on this San Diego State roster and the speed, like you mentioned, at the receiver position. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with Jesse Merchant here as the number 3 receiver. I'm going to do Frank Bowers as the number 4. Lewis Conklin, unfortunately, he is potentially going to miss some time here with that fatigue designation, and that's what he gets. He's unfortunately in position to lose his job as well. But I think Conklin probably should be that next guy there. He's the only other player on this team, or the only other receiver, rather, with 80 speed or better. So that and it's 88. So, no slouch there. Decent hands. Honestly, Lewis Conklin might be the 5th or the 4th best receiver on this team. He probably is. But Frank Bauer, I just have a soft spot for super skilled players with good hands, good agility. He seems like the type of player who could really make some things happen in the slot. But I'm going to try to be particular there in terms of how I set my sub packages to make sure that he is playing in the slot, because I don't really want him on the outside. That doesn't really do any good for anybody. So, and then after that, right, we're looking at, the likes of Richard Evans, Robert Goodman, Thomas Lee, Schneider. I mean, none of them are good, right? They all are missing something. Richard Evans seems like he's kind of the stoutest of those guys remaining. 78 speed, 74 hands. The only player among those left with at least that in each of those attributes. But somebody like Thomas Lee, he's missing the speed, but he's got incredible hands. He's a lot more skilled, and he's a lot smarter. So I kind of think that Thomas Lee would be the one that I'd be looking at there to fill that next role. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pencil him in for that. Thomas Lee was on the depth chart last year behind pretty much everybody who we've already mentioned, and then some graduating seniors. He was that top name left, even though Goodman was on the roster. So Thomas Lee as the senior, the elder statesman, if you will, among our trash receivers down below. I think that works for me. And then beyond that, man, it is really just a load of garbage. Probably do Richard Evans. I think he's, with the speed and the hands being kind of that decent combo there. And then Robert Goodman, Mr. Fatigue himself, probably deserves that spot there with the good hands. Schneider is both slow and can't catch the football, so that's usually not a combination that's going to get you on the field. So we'll do Robert Goodman here, and then Jonathan Schneider. God help us if either of those players have to play even one snap this year. Okay, don't think that anybody's really a redshirt candidate here. Davis, Jernigan, Merchant, they're all going to play. Bowers is going to play. And Thomas Lee is a senior that I hope never plays. So not really worried about that. Let's go to tight end. This one should be pretty straightforward. Vincenzo Martell, among the stars on this team. Doesn't have any traits, but look at that. I mean, one of the hardest workers, super competitive guy, great sportsmanship. He is not a team player, so he is in it for himself. But look at him. Look at that guy's face. There is no doubt that Vincenzo Martell is out for blood. That is a man who is only concerned about Mr. Martell. And I love it, right? I absolutely love this guy. He's been solid in camp, works his tail off, and we're seeing the results already, all right? Unfortunately, I'm not really seeing the results in his subgrades. Don't really understand how he's an 86 overall, given the fact that he's super slow and has terrible hands and isn't really a good blocker. But I think that's just how it works at tight end. You got to do a lot of things, so you're a jack of all trades and a master of none. And Vincenzo Martell is certainly a master of absolutely nothing. But he's the smartest tight end. He's the fastest tight end. He's, got hands on par with the other guys. He's one of the better blockers. Yeah, and he's super skilled. I don't know. He kind of sucks, but he's 238. Whatever. He's probably it. He's the strongest guy in the room. He's the most agile. I think it's just going to be Vincenzo Martell. And then behind Vincenzo Martell, I mean, this is the same exact tight end room we had last year. There's no additions and there's no subtractions. And last year we had it as Martell, we had Rourke behind him, and then we had Braun as the blocking tight end, and we had Narvaez redshirting. I don't really think that there's any reason to redshirt Christopher Braun, because he sucks. Again, I don't really like redshirting players who suck, so not really concerned about that. But he's also our only blocking tight end. So I think Christopher Braun I got Christian Braun on the mind. Christopher Braun is probably going to be the only other guy I turn to here. I mean, Rourke just isn't good either. Decent hands, but he's not fast. He's skilled. I guess it's Rourke. It's probably Rourke for the skill alone. We want skilled tight ends out there, especially because if they all suck, at least be good at your job. So we'll just keep the same exact depth chart as last year, to be honest. That sounds good to me. And yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, let us go to the hog mollies up front, the offensive line. And I am certainly excited about what we have at tackle with William Klein. One of the Klein brothers. He is the younger Klein brother, but he is the better Klein brother. Don't get that twisted. He is one of the players that I am most excited about on this roster. He's a freshman. He's 6'7", absolutely ridiculous, a monster up front. And he's an 87 run blocker already. Best on the team, or at least best at the tackle spot. I think it might be best on the team. He's not the most skilled, 69 skill. That's nice to see, but it's not exactly as high as I would want it to be. But look, I mean, he's the smartest tackle. He's the best run blocker. He's not the strongest here. Moffitt wins in the weight room, as does Gustavo Ford, but they're just really not disciplined run blockers, or pass blockers for that matter. So it's not exactly what I'm looking for from a starting tackle. So I think it's pretty clear to me, though, that William Klein is a starting right tackle. All right, he is a prototypical right tackle. He's huge. He's a great run blocker. Everything you want to see. Joseph Bailey, on the other hand, is a quintessential left tackle. You look at that with that 88 pass blocking, by far the best on the team. He's skilled enough. Again, he's not the strongest guy. Along with Klein, both those guys have sub-70 strength. That's not exactly what you'd like to see from the tackle spot, but, look, he's a super proficient pass blocker, and he's a pretty good run blocker. And these are the two most important traits by far when it comes to evaluating the tackle spots, and nobody else really comes close. So, to me, that's a pretty easy decision. And then you look at, who's going to back these guys up here? We have 3 seniors and a freshman, all right? Wayne Klein, it would make sense for Wayne Klein to be backing up his buddy William. They've been backing each other up for years, so I think that only makes sense. He's our best backup pass blocker, though, so, maybe he's somebody that I kick over to the left tackle, or maybe he's just a swing tackle, because he's the only guy who's actually competent as a pass blocker. And I don't really want Mark Berry to just get crushed over and over again. So I think it's probably going to be Wayne Klein. In fact, I might just slot him in as the starting left tackle, because if something does happen to Joseph Bailey, it really would be an absolute shame to put one of these guys in at left tackle. And we could kick over William, but at that point, you might as well just put Wayne in there. So I think Wayne Klein is going to be our starting left tackle and our backup left tackle and probably the backup right tackle. But for now, we'll just assume that he's the left. And then over at right tackle, I am certainly intrigued by Christian Horn. Everybody here kind of sucks. He's got that elite run blocking, but he's not the strongest. Moffitt is super, super strong, as is Gustavo Ford. Let's see if there's anything we can learn about their traits here. Oh, absolutely. There is, absolutely. Look at this! I didn't even know this. This is the first time I'm learning this. Wayne Klein and William Klein are both athletic blockers. Would you look at that? Of course they are. They grew up together. They've been blocking their whole lives. That is incredible. Love to see the brotherly connection between Wayne and William Klein. Absolutely love to see it. And then in terms of these other guys, Christian Horn has the pro bloodline, as does Stephen Moffitt, so that kind of makes that decision tough. Is there anything that we can learn here in terms of competitiveness? They're all pretty competitive. Decent sports. Wayne Klein is an absolute he's a calm man-child. That seems about right. He is a baby. When something doesn't go his way, he throws an absolute fit. Part of the reason why he's not a starter, all right? He's just too immature. But that is not the case with Christian Horn. He is a calm joker, and you can see that in his demeanor. It's not really a good reason to pick somebody to be your backup right tackle, but, everything counts. So, I'm thinking, given that he does have that pro bloodline, and that he is our best run blocker, probably going to be Christian Horn slotting in behind Mr. Klein at right tackle. And then between Moffitt and Ford, they're basically the same guy, except Moffitt's a lot more skilled. So I think it's gonna be Stephen Moffitt there getting the nod, and then Gustavo Ford. Again, I'm not really seeing any redshirt candidates. We could redshirt Stephen Moffitt, and maybe that's the answer. Is we kind of keep him out, but for what purpose, right? I'd kind of just rather have the scholarship. So I think we just leave that alone. We let that run its course, and that is what we're going to do with the tackle spot. All right, going to guard. I know this is riveting television here, trying to pick these offensive linemen, but, the guys up front, that is essentially the foundation of this entire thing. So, and again, another freshman star in Quincy Stanford. He is an 83 pass blocker and an 88 run blocker. That's absolutely ridiculous for a freshman at San Diego State. What is going on? This recruiting class was nuts, and I had absolutely nothing to do with it, so I'm totally thrilled. Pretty clear to me that Quincy Stanford should be a starter. The bigger question is whether he should start along the right side of the line or the left side of the line. I'm thinking probably a starter along the right side. But I guess it depends on who our other starter is. So let's pencil in Quincy Stanford, no doubt about it. He is a starter. Let's look at the personality, see if there's any traits here. Francisco Liu, athletic blocker, and then Quincy Stanford's film geek. Stanford is a starter, so don't have to worry about that. Francisco Liu as the athletic blocker. That is, honestly, maybe a tiebreaker for me here, because I was kind of leaning towards potentially having John Huey, who is a really good pass blocker here. Maybe him getting the nod. Nobody here really has the strength to set them apart. These guys do down here, but they're just so, unskilled and undisciplined here, quite literally with their skill, but also their skill as pass and run blockers. So I'm not really looking here. It is just between Liu and Huey, and they have the same exact strength. Liu is a bit more agile, so that would be decent in terms of kind of the stretch run game here, but he is a guard, so I'm not super concerned about that. In terms of pass blocking, that's a pretty huge difference between Huey and Liu, but it's an equally big difference there as run blockers, and Liu is the more skilled guy. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to have Quincy Stanford on the left side. He's going to be our starting left guard. And then Francisco Liu, right guard, not the deodorant, but the position on the field. That is Francisco Liu's. And then John Huey, man, he is good. I love John Huey. Love me some Huey John. I think he is going to be our swing backup, right? So he's going to be somebody that I am willing to play really at any spot if injuries strike. I'm more interested in having him at the left guard because of that pass blocking. But, he's somebody that if disaster strikes, probably the first name I am going to be calling off the bench. And then beyond that, between Sullivan, Chapman, and Bradshaw, Chapman, by the way, finally, I think we found a redshirt candidate. He's, a young kid. He's not super skilled, so he does have some room to develop there. Kind of has some room to develop all over the board, but he is strong. He's only a sophomore, 6'5". To me, that seems like the type of player that we'd be redshirting. And then between Sullivan and Bradshaw, it's got to be it's tough. It's really tough. Sullivan has the higher overall, but you could ask why. I mean, it's the strength is the clear answer, but he's a far inferior pass blocker, and he's less skilled. So I'm almost tempted to say that Bradshaw is more kind of, ready to see the field. But Sullivan's the smarter guy, and he's stronger, and, we're looking at backups here. So just come in there and don't make a mistake. And I'm a little bit worried that Bradshaw might make a mistake. It's tough. It's a tough call. I think those guys are pretty much neck and neck. But we'll just go with Sullivan for now over Bradshaw. And then the final decision for us on this depth chart here on the offense is at center. And there's really no question about it to me. I mean, none at all. It's William Lackey. Ray Lyles can't pass block, and he's a worse run blocker. And that's it. That is all you need to see there. Pretty simple decision. William Lackey was our starting center last year. We redshirted Ray Lyles. I don't think that he is ready to make the jump to starterdom. Bill Dozer says only 2 centers. Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. And it may mean that, something happens to William Lackey. We may even be looking at one of our tackles or our guards to slide over to that spot. But for now, pretty clearly going to be William Lackey as the starter. And if you look at that, guys, it's really not too bad of an offense. I mean, we have an 82 overall starting at center. At tackle, we have 280 overalls, who I feel really, really good about. At guard, we have essentially 280 overalls that I feel pretty good about. We have a nice senior quarterback who's being pushed by a hotshot freshman here in George Prince out of North Valley High School in Grants Pass, Oregon. Shout out, Rep, Oregon. And then running back, I feel really good about our running back room, guys. Robert Larson and Todd Cantrell as that 1-2 thunder and lightning punch with Frank Godinez, once he rests up after that really fatiguing offseason. And then we have the fastest fullback in the country and some really talented young receivers. So I think that we'll be able to make some noise on offense. I actually do. I did not feel that good about our depth chart last year, but I kind of think that this year's depth chart is coming together on offense. And really not going to have to redshirt anybody. So we should be pretty much full strength there. So that is going to be really, really exciting to see. We're coming up on an hour, so I think it's probably a good time to call this episode. Like I thought, we were probably only going to get through offense today. So for next episode, we will go through the defensive depth chart. I am a huge fan of our defense. It is absolutely stacked with talent up and down the roster. I would show you guys, but I'm going to go ahead and just tease that for next time. But if you've been watching along the way, I think you know just how good our defense is and what we have in store there. So that'll do it for this week's episode. Appreciate you guys joining. As always, it means a lot for me, for you guys to take time out of your Wednesday evenings to join me here live on Twitch. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, even better. You guys are coming back after this stream is already old news and deciding to follow along. So it really does mean a lot. This is a really cool thing that we've been doing now for a few months with these videos and just with engaging in the community as a whole. This community has grown so much, not only over the last few months, but just over the last few weeks. And this game is a huge reason why. So credit to Brooks and Asger and to Gary for putting this game and just the overall company together and building something the community has a reason to galvanize around. And I think that we're really going places here. So appreciate you guys joining us as always. A few things before we go. First thing, if you have not subscribed to our Twitch channel, you're probably getting tired of me saying it, but that means that you should probably just subscribe, because if you hear me say it and you feel any guilt in your heart, you know what to do. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you get a free subscription every single month just by linking it to your Twitch account. So it actually is personal if you decide not to subscribe to us. If you do, and you send me a screenshot, I will share my favorite beach spot in San Diego. It's one worth planning a vacation over. So if that's not a tease, I don't know what is. Second thing, don't forget to post about your teams and careers with hashtag Franchise Friday this Friday on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Discord, Slack, and the original forums on Wolverine Studios. There is some awesome stuff going on in the community. There's a fantasy league going on, not fantasy in terms of fantasy football, but a fake league going on, a fictional league rather. That's one of the coolest things I've seen in the community. So excited to see updates on that. Bill, I know you're always active on Franchise Friday, so love to see that. And if you have any ideas for videos that you'd like to see, or any other questions, or you just want to chat about Wolverine Studios, or chat about football, or chat about the Klein brothers, I am always here. You know where to find me on Twitch and Twitter at CJacksonCowart, on our Discord server, or anywhere on the Wolverine Studios forums. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.